When the Torah talks about kibbutz galuyot, the ingathering of the exiles, is God supposed to do it for us, or are we supposed to do it ourselves? To answer this question, let's take a look at two verses from Parashat Nitzavim that we read this week, which may be familiar to you from the prayer for the welfare of the state of Israel. Even if your outcasts are at the ends of the world, from there the Lord your God will gather you, and the Lord your God will bring you to the land that your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it. Including these verses in the prayer for the Jewish state after it was founded made perfect sense. It was a way of saying, look at the miracle of the Jews returning home after centuries of exile, and let's keep praying for the return of millions more. But here's the tension. These verses and many others like them describe God as the one who gathers us. And yet, the entire Zionist movement was built on the idea that we cannot sit around waiting for miracles, that we must take our future into our own hands. So how can a prayer for the state of Israel include verses that seem to undermine the very foundation of Zionism? This question can be asked as well with regard to the return of the exiles in the days of Ezra and Nehemiah. The prophets spoke about God's role in the return, but the texts themselves talk about Jews who came up from Babylonia, presumably on their own initiative. Furthermore, there were two separate waves of Aliyah. The first in 538 BCE, and then another almost a century later. If God alone were orchestrating the return, why would it happen in two waves separated by generations? The rabbis go even further. In the Midrash on Shir HaShirim, they say, if Israel had ascended from Babylonia like a wall, that is, united and all together, the Second Temple would never have been destroyed. In other words, because most Jews stayed in Babylonia, the rabbis actually hold them responsible for the temple's eventual destruction. But if the ingathering were only God's responsibility, how could the people be blamed? It appears that the answer is this. The ingathering of the exiles doesn't mean that God is going to fly us home on a magic carpet. Instead, God creates the conditions that make our return possible. But it's up to us to act. Thus, the book of Ezra begins with, the Lord roused the spirit of King Cyrus of Persia. And Cyrus then declares, the God of heaven has charged me to build him a house in Jerusalem. According to these texts, God called upon Cyrus to invite the Jews to rebuild the temple. But the Jews had to take advantage of the opportunity on their own. Tragically, most did not. Fast forward to modern times. Just as God worked through Cyrus then, he worked through the United Nations in 1947, opening the door for us to return and rebuild a sovereign Jewish state once again. God set the stage, but the responsibility was and still is ours. Today, Israel is home to nearly 7.5 million Jews, yet more than half of our people still live in the diaspora. Many have no interest in moving, but countless others pray every single day and every Shabbat for the ingathering of the exiles. And so I turn to them with this one simple question. What are you waiting for? Shabbat Shalom.